cooling system set up a little bit differently on this bike. The radiator is actually right here inside of this cowl. Here's the fan and plumbing here, and then underneath you can kind of see it. This is a return line down here, but it gets hidden by the exhaust when you look at it from the side. And I know what you're thinking. Why in the world would you put a radiator behind the motor? Well, for one, I hate radiators in the front. It's like they just added this big rectangular slab to the front of some, usually good-looking bikes. It's like it was just an add-on idea, and it looks terrible, and I don't like it. So after 20 years of working with this particular motor, I knew that if it's jetted correctly and you run free-flow exhaust and your cooling system is in good repair, it runs so cool, even at idle, for long periods of time, that the fan will never come on. And it used to concern me. I used to check the fan regularly and check the thermal switches regularly, and eventually just kind of realized that the fact that they had actually used cast fins, these aren't for looks, these are actual fins for the jugs and the cylinder heads, and a radiator, was enough to keep this little motor running between 180 and 200 degrees all the time, even without airflow through the radiator. And the water pump pumps it slowest at idle. So actually, as you're riding the bike and it's moving and your RPMs come up, the motor cools down because the pump is actually starting to work at a much higher efficiency. As you can see here, this is the thermostat, and then the piping that goes down to the cooling jacket around the jugs through the heads. And it's basically, this is where it would have been on the Honda Shadow. I just added extra tubing all the way down underneath the motor. Comes up here. This is all sweated copper tubing, so you have to be kind of a plumber. Works real well though for tight bends. And into the radiator. Again, the radiator's right here behind the main frame post. Kind of tucked in there out of the way. Works great. I know you wouldn't think so, but I'm telling you, for this motor it does. I wouldn't recommend it on some of the other Honda motors I worked on because the fins are for looks. They're actually bolted onto the side of the motor and have rubber insulators, so if anything, they're keeping heat in. But anyway, on this motor it works. It works great. This is the fluid reservoir, just a piece of pipe with a pipe cap welded or threaded piece of pipe here, the cap. Pop that thing off, look down in there, and fluid level, you need it to be somewhere in here, and it always is. No problems, works great. Well, for the first 300 miles I wasn't completely sure, and to make sure I carried a thermal, a laser thermometer with me and would check the temperature, of the heads, and then of the water temperature going into the thermostat, and then also the temperature at the top and then the bottom of the radiator. And without fail, no matter when I stopped, at whatever speed, for however long, temperature at the bottom of the radiator, which is where it comes out and goes back into the motor, right around 160 degrees. So it works. Works pretty good.